NFL star Adrian Peterson is free on $15,000 bail today after turning himself in on a felony charge of child abuse. Peterson is accused of using a switch to discipline his son, but his lawyer says he did so, quote, much like he experienced as a child growing up in East Texas. He called it a whooping. Well, let's bring in our legal team. Criminal defense attorney Tanya Miller in for Avery Friedman today, and Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor. And Richard, I want to start with you. Not everyone who sees this story views it necessarily as abuse. They say, look, my dad whooped me, I whooped the kid. Is that the kind of defense that actually even holds up in court?
Deb, that doesn't hold up anywhere. The fact that his daddy did it to him and his daddy's daddy did it to him, and Rusty Hardin, his attorney, who's a suave guy, is running around saying, hey, you know, he didn't intend what? He took a willow branch, he stripped the leaves off the willow branch, he stuffed the leaves in a 4-year-old's mouth, he made the 4-year-old strip, he bent him over, and he whipped him. He lashed him 15 to 20 times. He's 6'1", almost 200 pounds of solid muscle, probably bench presses 400 pounds. He didn't intend what? He beat the crap out of this kid. He's going to be convicted. He went to the grand jury without immunity. He testified. He admitted the crime. He will be a convicted felon. The NFL should strip him for the rest of this year. He needs electroshock therapy and maybe more. I don't know. It's a very bad situation here.
You know, but it's interesting, Tanya, you know, when you look at this, clearly no hitting is really allowed anymore, you know, no matter what anybody grew up with. There's a line between child abuse and discipline, but it's interesting the way he handled it. He went directly to the authorities. He didn't try to cover it up. He's basically standing there saying, this is what I did. Let me tell you my side of the story, which is very different from Ray Rice did. How do you see this?
Well, you know, I mean, I don't know that he had much of a choice. He had already tweeted or emailed or texted the child's mother and told the child's mother what he did, essentially admitting that he believed he went too far. He even described, you know, I really feel bad about the hit to his genital areas. I think that one was really painful. I feel bad about that. So I don't know that he had much of a choice but to go to the authorities and to try to get in front of this thing and get his version of this thing out first. I don't think that that is going to help him in this case, in part because we can see the photographs. We can see the injuries to the baby. I can't say, you know, my co-guest said it perfectly. There's not much more really to say about it. This is a 4-year-old baby. You don't leave marks like that. You don't break the skin of a 4-year-old allegedly because he wanted his brother to let him play the video game. I mean, you have got to have a better way of dealing with a 4-year-old than doing that and to stuff leaves in his mouth. That was just cruel, and I think it's clearly has crossed the line from discipline to child abuse. There's no question about that. You know, the one question I have is, look, you know, the NFL really gives these guys so much fame so quickly, especially the star players. Do they have any kind of parenting classes? Do they have any kind of marriage classes? Do they have anything that enables these athletes to be able to deal with not only the stresses of the game, but also really the stresses of their life? Because if a guy can't control a 4-year-old except by hitting him, like, where's the disconnect there?
Well, Deb, it's very hard for a single parent to raise a child, and it's just very, very difficult. But he's out of control. It was summer vacation, and he annihilated this young child. What crime did this 4-year-old commit where he deserved to be beaten 15 to 20 times in the whooping room where daddy has a lot of belts and he likes to use the belts, and I thought daddy might punch me in the mouth if I tell anybody about this. I mean, Adrian Peterson, it's not discipline. Rusty Hardin, the world, it's not discipline. He's out of control. He beat the crap out of the kid. He cannot have visitation without supervision in the future. The NFL has a minimum 6-month suspension for crimes like this, minimum, and when it involves a child, it can be more. It should be more. He should be thrown out for this year. And, you know, if it's my client in the Bronx, New York, who does something like this, he's in prison right now. He's not walking around free. He's in prison right now.
Yeah, no question. All right, Tanya and Richard, we're going to be coming back right after a quick break. Stay with us. We have a lot more to talk about. The NFL, its commissioner, are they in legal jeopardy because of how they did handle the Ray Rice incident? We're going to get Tanya and Richard's take on that when we come back right after this break. Well, the chorus of voices criticizing NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, that chorus is getting much, much louder. The latest comes from former Steelers player James Harrison. He was fined by Goodell during his playing days. On Twitter, he wrote, "Okay, at NFL Commish Roger Goodell. So let's just say you didn't know. So at best, it's negligence. What fine, suspension, penalty would you make up for that?" Goodell says he did not know Ray Rice hit his wife during an argument in Atlantic City. However, several reports say Rice himself told Goodell in a private meeting in June. AP is reporting that the videotape of Rice hitting his now wife was sent to the NFL 5 months ago. Andy Scholes looks at the controversy surrounding the NFL commissioner.
Here's the running back.
The Baltimore Ravens taking the field for the first time since their teammate Ray Rice was let go amidst a domestic violence controversy. In a new report, 4 sources tell ESPN that Rice met with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell back in June, admitting he punched his then-fiancée Janae Palmer in a casino elevator months before TMZ posted the surveillance video. On Tuesday, Goodell told CBS News that Rice's account of what happened was ambiguous compared to what the video showed.
But what was ambiguous about her laying unconscious on the floor, being dragged out by her feet?
There was nothing ambiguous about that. That was the result that we saw. We did not know what led up to that.
The number of current and former players calling for Goodell to be held accountable is growing by the day.
Roger Goodell failed to act, plain and simple. He failed to act, there should be consequences.
And former Philadelphia Eagles running back Brian Westbrook tweeting, "Being a leader is not a part-time job. If Goodell holds the players to a high standard, he should be held to that same high standard." Mere hours before Thursday night's kickoff, CBS officials nixed a pre-recorded Rihanna opener, considering the singer's own history of domestic abuse at the hands of ex Chris Brown. Instead, devoting time to a discussion about the abuse scandal rocking the NFL, culminating with James Brown making a powerful plea.
According to domestic violence experts, more than 3 women per day lose their lives at the hands of their partners. So this is yet another call to men to stand up and take responsibility for their thoughts, their words, their deeds, and as Dion says, to give help or to get help, because our silence is deafening and deadly.
After defeating the Steelers, the Ravens voiced their support for their ex-teammate.
He's always been unbelievable in the community here, and people have really grown to love him, and they support him, as do we. We acknowledge the mistake he made.
Ray is still a great guy. You know, he made a mistake. You take away those 2 minutes of his life, and you look at a model citizen, a model man.
Fans also showing loyalty to Rice by wearing his jersey.
I stick behind Ray Rice 100%. And I will rock this jersey every day until he is back on that field.
This is a situation that is between his wife and himself, and I feel that everybody should leave them alone and let them deal with the situation.
And that was Andy Scholes for us. And Andy tells us that he was really shocked to see how many female Ravens fans were actually wearing Ray Rice jerseys at the game this week. And the people Andy talked to were more upset at the NFL and Roger Goodell than they actually were with Ray Rice. So let's bring in our legal team, criminal defense attorney Tanya Miller in for Avery Friedman, and Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor. He is in Las Vegas. Tanya, you look at the commissioner's reaction, and he says, well, we only saw her being dragged out of the elevator. That's the part we saw. But why didn't he say anything about the fact Ray Rice didn't even lean down to help his wife? Shouldn't that be the base minimum? If you accidentally hit somebody, don't you actually try to find out, are you okay?
Look, I think Goodell has problems, and the biggest problem that he's going to have here is that there are law enforcement officers who say that they provided this full video to the NFL months before it was released by TMZ. Goodell presumably had that video, or someone in his office had that video, if you believe the report of law enforcement. Now, if that is true, and if that turns out to be true, and it's being investigated now by Robert Mueller, former head of the FBI, who's conducting an independent investigation into that, if that's true, then we have a problem with Goodell potentially covering this up, potentially misleading other team owners and players and the public. So Goodell's going to have a bigger problem than his opinion of whether or not Rice should have helped his wife up after she was laying face down on the floor of a casino if he lied to everybody about what he knew and when he knew it.
And, you know, Richard, it's fascinating to me. I really get the sense that the key players, the stars who bring in a lot of money, the stars who bring the fans, they are enabled by a lot of the people around them. Arguably, Goodell enabled Rice by not calling him to account quickly and decisively right at the beginning. He could have gotten ahead of this. He did not. Why not?
Well, he did not. But there's two things going on here. Let's just not mistake, because people in Baltimore have lost their mind, okay? He almost killed this woman. He didn't just smack her. He didn't just push her. He knocked her out cold, dragged her, threw her head down on the ground. He almost killed her. Whether she wanted to press charges or not, in New York, my client's sitting in prison right now off that video, okay? So that's step number one. Number two, oh, what a tangled web we weave, I guess, when we first seek to deceive. The NFL, Roger Goodell, I think he's in big trouble right now. It's clear TMZ sent that video to the NFL 4 or 5 months ago. And for Roger Goodell to say, listen, it wasn't tested because I had asked for it from law enforcement and they refused to give it to me, but he did see the video. And then for him to give a little slap on the wrist, a 2-game suspension, that's beyond absurd. And the stories that he's covered, it looks like a cover-up right now. It looks bad. It looks like the integrity of the NFL is going down the toilet fast here.
So, and I want to ask Tanya about that right now. Look, the former FBI director, Bob Mueller, really a guy of great integrity, a man who's stood up to leaders and said this isn't the way it should be happening. But given that it's going to be overseen by 2 NFL owners, is it really an independent investigation? Will it be sort of the clear call that the NFL needs, Tanya?
Well, when you say oversee, so there's two sort of ways to think about that. First of all, there's sort of your point of contact. The 2 NFL owners, team owners that are the point of contact for Mueller and his team does not mean that they're going to supervise him. It's not mean they're going to dictate to him what he can ask and what he can see. They are just there to facilitate his investigation. And I just do not believe, without any other evidence, that Mueller would allow someone to contaminate his investigation. He is a man with
and I agree, knowing
high
what
reputation, and I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, knowing what I know. Very quickly, as we wrap, thumbs up, thumbs down, does Goodell survive? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Don't say anything.
I think the Goodell's gone.
Okay. Jury's split. All right. Thanks so much, Tanya and Richard. We appreciate it. Well,